Welcome to the Startup Support Surgery podcast, where we light the entrepreneurial spark in medics and healthcare professionals. Join me, Dr. Jo Watkins, GP, business coach and co-founder of The How People, on a journey to discover where your medical know-how meets the business world. This will help you find some clarity on how to balance work, passions and family so that you can gain more freedom and control over your life, but also continue to help people, which is actually why most of us went into medicine to start with. Embarking on this entrepreneurial adventure is not easy. It is a roller coaster of emotions, but it's hugely rewarding and exciting in the process. Drawing on my 20 years of blending medicine and business as a GP, I am here to share experiences, insights and lessons. Expect lively chats, expert interviews and real-life stories from medics who have taken their own path. Let's break free from traditional healthcare norms and explore more innovative ways of making a real difference to people's health and well-being, along with paving the way for a brighter future for us as healthcare professionals. Oh, don't miss my free PDF called From Stethoscope to Startup, which is an 11-page guide in the show notes full of practical help and advice. This is your roadmap to kickstarting your journey with us. Enjoy the show. Today I am going to be sharing something a little bit different. People have been telling me to do a podcast for quite a long time. And when we were in Canada last winter, I thought there's no time like the present. So I just decided to get on and do it. I wasn't even sure at that time what the program was going to be called, how things were really going to develop. So there have been lots of iterations of what I am now doing. And I think that's an important thing to recognize, is that I didn't start off knowing how this was going to go. And I think also Emma did not start off knowing how it was going to work for her either. So when I decided I was going to be a podcast, the first person I wanted to get on the show was one of my clients called Dr. Emma Presern. At the time, back in March 2024, Emma had joined my program a couple of months earlier and made real progress. So I was really excited to talk to her. And that is what we decided to do. So I was very pleased when she said yes. And we hit record while I was in my Zoom office. Now, anyone that's had a meeting with me when I'm in Canada knows that my Zoom office is actually a switched off sauna that I use for my early morning calls during the time that we are there. So this conversation was very unplanned. I had a vague idea of what the interview was going to look like. I was going to hang it off some pillars that we talk about in the program, which is what I reference sometimes. But it was just a really good chat. And I just want to share that with you because I think the messages here are important from me and the messages here are important from Emma. And those are just get out there and give something a go. It is not going to be perfect. You need to get scrappy and just do it. Do it before you are ready. Give it a go, have a try. So both Emma and I are living testament to that. And actually, 9 months later, last weekend at the conference I helped organize, Emma presented her work. She presented her work for Rebellious Health and the recent RE project that she has taken 33 doctors through. And she talked to us about her plan for the next cohort of doctors starting in January 2025. Who she will be supporting with the RE Project 2.0. I am incredibly proud and excited to see her blossom and take on her projects and ideas with so much passion. So I want to let you into that conversation we had in the sauna. I want you to hear that. And then later on in the podcast series, I'm sure I'll be interviewing her again. But let's see what Dr. Emma Presern, the rebellious medic, had to say to me 9 months ago. So I'm really, really excited to welcome you, Emma. Thanks for your time today.
Thank you so much for inviting me on. And yeah,
no problem.
Let me do this.
Yeah, it's going to be great. It's going to be great to chat to you. And you've got a beautiful bookshelf behind you. I know everybody loves a beautiful bookshelf. So thank you for joining us. So tell me a little bit about you now, and then we're going to go back and find out about your journey.
Sure. So I'm Emma, I'm 36 and I'm now living, as you said, in the foothills of Snowdonia in North Wales, which is a far cry from where I was last year, which was a busy high street in East London. I'm working as a GP locum now, but I finished my training in East London, so that hence the move.
Okay. Fine. So I'm going to say right now that this podcast is going to be real because I have got 4 children and they're all at home. One of them's just walked into my sauna office. Hello, Meg. No, that's okay. What's the?
Can I open the packet?
Yeah, go and ask Tom to help you, okay? And shut the door for me. So I used to think that these things had to be perfect, but I now realise they don't, and I'm not even going to try and be perfect. So I am out there we're doing what we do best, and we are being super organic and very real. So she's gone now, and I'm in my sauna office in Canada. You're in North Wales, and we're going to go through this journey. You're a client on my startup strategy system program, which is helping medics really go from feeling completely powerless to feeling full of purpose and drive for whatever project they're doing. And I want to take people through that journey. So can you tell me a little bit about this time last year or 2 years ago, or where you were? And then we're going to try and work through where you're going now.
Yeah, of course. Well, this time last year, I was in my final year of GP training in East London, and it was a bit of a long and convoluted journey for me to get there. I've been a doctor for 11 years, but I've segued, through Australia, as many of us do, and then returned back to do my GP training in Hackney. When I returned back from Australia, I think I had a bit of a shock. It was definitely a shock to the system coming back from working in Australia. And it hit me quite hard when I was working in A&E in a busy East London A&E department. So I was working, classic shift patterns. And I think, as we all do sometimes, those shift patterns can be a bit inhumane. And I was feeling quite exhausted, developed a lot of insomnia. And I think that was sort of the start of all of this journey. When I say journey, I mean my own personal burnout journey, which definitely was long and slow. And I didn't even know what that really was back when it all started. To sort of the seed for my new idea and my new project being sown in 2019. And then that progressed quite a lot more when I took a year out in 2021. And I took that year out from GP training as an out of program experience. Because really, the truth be told, I was really struggling, and it was my sort of way out. It was my lifeline. It was the time that I really needed to give to myself to sort of get back on track.
Okay. So that was part of so you came back from Australia and you went straight into this GP training here. And it almost feels like immediately there was a bit of a disconnect, and that you knew something wasn't right.
I think so. It was a bit of a hard decision as to whether I was even going to come back, because the way they work in Australia for me was totally, it was a breath of fresh air. They actually, in my experience, really know what work-life balance was, and they really looked after their medics there. So I had an amazing experience there, and I actually applied for GP training there. But, my family and friends are in the UK, and I trained in the NHS, and I really, really, that brought me back home, as it does with so many medics.
Yeah.
I knew it was going to be hard, but I don't think I was quite ready for how hard I was going to find it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we've got this picture of how you were feeling. You've taken that big decision to take some time out of your training. How did that go? Was that a challenging moment for you?
I think it was very challenging, because I was probably a classic medic where I didn't want to admit to anyone that I was really struggling. I'd never failed anything in my life. I kind of sailed through medical school and exams and all of that. Patients liked me, doctors liked me, I think. There was no issue during training, and I certainly hid that very well at work. So I don't think anyone would have really realized what I was feeling inside. What a lot of people didn't know was that I was dealing with a lot of stuff in my personal life, as we all do. Relationship issues, family issues, all sorts of stuff can be going on in the background that you might not be sort of showing anyone around you at work. So that out of program was sort of my, I couldn't admit to anyone that I really, really needed a break because I was struggling. So it was my, oh, well, I'll apply for this and say, I'm going to do something exciting with it and get more experience in other specialties that I hadn't done and, to get approved, basically, so to speak.
Right. Yeah, that's it. So it's almost like you felt like you couldn't really even admit at that point that you were burning out or you were feeling like you were on the edge of burnout. Would that be fair?
That would be very fair. Yeah, it would be completely fair. I had quite a bad experience in 2019 when I was really struggling with insomnia, and I asked the rota coordinator whether there was any possibility of changing the shift pattern for me, just because I was really, really, not doing well. And it was my first experience of just really being met with that, I guess, that sort of one size fits all mentality, or we're all one big machine. And, the rota coordinator, who was actually a clinician, was just completely dismissive and sort of said, sounds like you're not coping, not going to change the rota just for you. Sounds like you might need to go and see occupational health or go on sick leave. And it was what I was trying to avoid. I was trying to avoid sick leave. And really, actually, that was the first time I opened up. And I was met with quite a lot of resistance, which really shocked me personally. But, and I think that's probably why I went for the out of program route a couple of years later.
Right. Okay. So this is really important stuff, because this is sort of bedding in a lot of the reasons why you're now doing what you're doing, isn't it? So I think what I'd like to kind of do is try and work from where we were there, those feelings that you had, to, I guess, maybe the first time we spoke, which was, I think you just moved into your place in North Wales maybe a month before or something. So I think there's been this fairly accelerated period of time that we've had since that point, when you arrived in North Wales. But how did you sort of make the next decisions to get to where you are now?
Yeah, completely. That's completely right. It was about a month after I moved in, but I knew from that point, on that year out, I did a 6-week long hike by myself in the mountains. I know I'm not a city girl. I don't know why I was in London for that long. But I knew as soon as GP with training was done, I was out of London. I just knew that deep within. I was like, I need to be in nature. I need to have nature close by. I can't be driving 2 hours to get somewhere where there's, what I class as nature. So that was always inside. That was the plan. And I pretty much, when I had about 6 months left to go of my GP training, I put my flat on the market. I had no plans, no idea where to go. Didn't have a house, and I had a van, or I bought a van. So that was the sort of the exit plan. And I didn't know where I was going to go. I just knew I wanted out of London, and then things would unfold. And in the background, I had that seed for rebellious health, which I told you about. So I knew that was simmering away, but I wanted to move somewhere that would give me the headspace, the environment where I could really put some time and energy into it. And that's been this place that I've moved to in Wales. And then obviously meeting you and joining your program has definitely accelerated things quite substantially.
But would it be safe to say that period of time, that 6 weeks and that out of program, those out of program decisions gave you that distance to be able to actually look at what you want to do with your life, what you want it to look like? And I say the same thing about my sort of journey, in that when we took that time out, I almost went through a period sort of self-coaching, really. What do I really want to do? What do I want my life to look like? What do I want my days to look like, my weeks to look like? And, sometimes when we're in the hustle and bustle and we're on the treadmill, we don't take that time. Any time we have for holiday or family is just to flop, and, that people just switch off for 2 weeks and then switch on again. We've got to take that time, right? If you hadn't taken that time, what would have happened?
Exactly. And I'm reflecting now, I know that time saved me from leaving clinical medicine altogether, because that's where I was at. I was thinking I might actually have to just pull out of clinical medicine. Again, didn't tell anyone else that, so no one else would have known, but that's what I was feeling. So that time really, really was, paramount in everything from then on. I took a whole year out, unpaid. So, that's how much I needed this time to go on a bit of a really quite a deep journey, to be honest. I think going through, I'd really always I wasn't really living how I felt, I was really deep down. I was sort of wearing a mask around people. I was unhappy, but people probably wouldn't know it. I hadn't addressed a lot of sort of deeper stuff, family stuff, that we don't have time to even address as medics sometimes. It's such a busy job. You're just a lot of the time surviving and getting through the day. So yeah. I knew there was stuff I had to work on. And that time was so transformational for me. I would urge anyone sometime, if you're feeling stuck with something, that you need time. Yeah. You really need time to work on yourself.
And this is part of what you've come up with, isn't it? So when we first met, you'd obviously made the move. So we've got, I think it's important that we don't fast forward all the steps, because it's a good 3 years there when you've had an idea, probably on your 6-week walk, you're kind of coming up with all of these thoughts. And then there's probably bits of you that had to put that to bed because you had to think about selling flats and buying vans and where you were going to live. And, it feels like you've made all these little micro decisions and it's moving you towards something really special. So we're talking about the planning stage. And this is one of my 5 things. So, I feel like at the beginning, everyone's feeling pretty powerless and stuck, or all of these sort of negative places that we're at as medics. And then we need to get into this next space, which is, okay, let me take a bit of control back. What do I actually want things to look like? And this is this planning stage. So before we move on to the next bit, tell us what that seed has been, and where you are now with it in terms of planning.
Yeah. The seed came because I went on my own, I call it a healing journey, really. And it wasn't the sort of traditional Western medical model that we've been, trained in. I did actually go to my GP when I was struggling a while ago, but in 10 minutes, I was offered, antidepressant sleeping tablets or a sick note. I wasn't even offered therapy at the time. And again, that was one of those things, like the rota coordinator issue, where I thought, wow, okay, something's wrong here. Now, being on the receiving end of that. So I went on my own journey. I searched for things myself. I found a lot of really, really, interesting tools that have been absolutely paramount in my journey and kind of have helped me more than I could ever realize. And I preach about some of them to a lot of people, so they're probably sick of me hearing it. But, things like breath work have been absolutely transformational for me. Movement, exercise, being out in nature and really connecting to nature. And yeah, quite a few sort of rebellious ways of healing that, we don't incorporate into our medical system, but I really think they need to be mainstream.
Yeah. So this has led you to this rebellious medic concept. Tell us a bit more about that.
Yeah, so I think just because of that journey that I was on in 2021, that year out, and doing sort of things a bit differently, the breath work and a few other rebellious, ways of healing, I guess, this rebellious medic idea came into my head, and I had spoken to other doctors who, also believe in the same sort of healing modalities, and it all sort of kind of bubbled in. I actually did a breath work once, and I started getting some brain downloads about, rebellious health and all these different ways of doing things, and started thinking like we need to sort of demystify a lot of this, and because there are so many people that could benefit, ourselves as healthcare professionals, number one, but also this can be used for our patients. Most of these tools that I really enjoy are free. Anyone can do them. Anyone can access them, and they have as much evidence as a lot of the medications that we prescribe day in, day out.
Yeah, fantastic. So you're bringing lots of things together. and helping people, medics who are feeling on the edge of burnout. Other people can contact you. We'll talk about how to contact you in the show notes. But as well as that, you are sort of bringing together these rebellious health concepts with this concept of needing space from what we're doing and taking time out. Do you want to try and link those two things together for us?
Yeah, of course. And actually, I just want to thank you really, because this idea has only come since I started working with you. So it was all very chaotic in my head. There was sort of breath work and nature and adventure, and I had no idea how any of this really looked, as a business or anything, to be honest. They were just all ideas and retreats. And I think when I first spoke to you, it was all a bit chaotic. And I was like, oh, I've just moved to Wales and I might do retreats. And, I didn't really have a plan at all. But then working with you just kickstarted it and actually just honed it all down so amazingly, to be honest, because it's only March now, isn't it? And I started in January.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, you've been taking action. You've been, for me, what you have been doing is taking those imperfect steps. So, getting on and doing what you need to do without sitting there and overthinking it and worrying. I think as medics, we all have this concern about showing up, particularly on social media. But one of the things in my program is that it's not actually about, bearing your all on social media or jumping up and down on TikTok. There's something more important than that, which is, who do you really want to help and how do you want to help them? And what you're doing is trying to support people in at that really vulnerable point. And I know that there are so many medics out there of, my age, like midlife medics, who are just surviving. They're not thriving. They're not really enjoying their day job anymore. They're just doing what they need to do. And actually taking that little bit of time out, giving yourself that time to reflect, time to do something differently, actually can completely revive your love of the day job. And, people say, well, aren't you just encouraging people to leave medicine? And it's quite the opposite, because actually, if you can bring a creative project to life, if you can feel purposeful every time you get up in the morning, then everything else starts running a little bit more smoothly. And I think that's what I love about what I hear about what you're doing, is that you're really trying to intervene to help people. And I think that, some of the bits around your project are a little bit ambiguous at the moment because it's so early days. But from a planning perspective, I think that's where you are doing all the right things. So we will talk about it a little bit more in a minute, but we move from the planning stage. The next thing I look at is people. And you've talked a little bit about jumping on the program. Can you talk a little bit about the importance of people over the last sort of few months, not necessarily me, but other people in your life, and how that's looked for you?
Yeah, no, of course. I mean, initially, because of the sort of person I am, I'm definitely an introverted. I'm an INFP on the Myers-Briggs.
Yeah.
So I'm normally quite introverted, and I was like, oh, I'm going to get a one-to-one coach because I'll get a lot more out of that. And immediately I was like, no, you need to push yourself out of your comfort zone. You want to work with people and possibly in groups. So you need to do a group program because you need to get better at, being able to be open and talk within a group. So that was the first step. And then this community that you've got has been amazing for that. And I've really seen my own growth, just being part of a group of people that normally I would have shied away from something like that. I'm normally the sort of person that probably wouldn't talk out, in a big group of people. So
yes,
that was the first step for me.
Yeah.
And start pushing myself out of my comfort zone, which is how I try to really push myself a lot of the time.
And I think that's it's something that often we don't really realize as a benefit, do we? This concept of community and other people doing the same thing. Because I don't know about you, but I certainly sometimes feel like not everybody is going to understand what you're doing, especially when you're choosing to do something a little bit different with your time, or you're entering into business when you're in the world of medics. And often there's people that are just like, oh, I just don't get it. I mean, people say that to me all the time. It's just, what is she going on about now? I just don't get it. And that's fine. And I love those people with all of my heart. But you need to have the support of others. And I think that's what's great, isn't it, about the community? There's always somebody on the end of a message to kind of, support you, or turn up for a webinar, or look at your Facebook post, or whatever. It's that
completely
important, isn't it?
It's like having about 20 coaches, all kind of helping each other. So that's been really, really helpful. And then it's about people and connection that I've realized is so important. It's about finding your tribe. Because I felt so lonely as a rebellious medic. I thought I was the only person out there who did breath work and things like that. I didn't know, but I know there are many, many others who have started to question possibly how we do things, and maybe trying things on their own. So I know there's a tribe out there. And that's what I hope to build, is, a community of like-minded rebellious medics who want to try and start doing things a little bit differently.
Fabulous. And you found, I think LinkedIn you've been using quite a bit, haven't you? Started out on that in the last couple of weeks, and you've started writing a newsletter, and we're going to link all of this up so that people can keep in touch with you. So reaching out, what about your sort of the people around you more immediately? Have you been able to sort of that this term networking that most medics just absolutely cringe about? It's like, oh, I hate networking. As a concept, I find it quite difficult. And then I realized that I've just always been somebody that's been really good at keeping, that if you sit next to me on a bus, you'll get a conversation. If this is just something I do. I talk to people, and that's what networking is, really, isn't it? But have you been able to go in? Have you found that there are people around you that you maybe didn't know would be so helpful at this point?
Yeah, I'm a 2-week LinkedIn newbie. And I didn't realize how amazing it would be, to network, but actually just to connect with people who are doing amazing things, who, are like-minded. And it's just been this incredible 2 weeks on LinkedIn, to be honest, where I've met and connected with so many other like-minded people that, I'm going to collaborate with, people that may join the program in May. And I was that medic who was like, oh, LinkedIn, no, that's far too, why do I need to be on LinkedIn? And also, again, shying away from the networking thing. I think one of my friends who's not a medic was like, oh, I want you to meet my friend Kyle and introduce her. I was like, oh, what is this networking? And I had no idea what it was. So
yeah, exactly. So it's connecting. It's having, absolutely, connecting, having conversations, and finding, I think there's also this whole, I see people say, well, that somebody's already doing that. And it's like, well, do you know what? The more people that have got the same message or similar messages, and we can all support each other, there's room for everybody. So I think finding those people that are doing similar things to you is where the value absolutely is, and reaching out to them and, like you say, working together, sharing knowledge is just so important. So people is really important. We've touched on the next thing, which is presence. And basically the reason I've put this 5-step process is because the vast majority of medics that contact me are worried about social media and websites. So, I've got to have a website, I've got to have social media. And I find that I have to strip it right back usually and start again. And I love it when somebody like you, who is just full of ideas, who hasn't actually committed to start anything, because I think what we've managed to do is fast forward time a bit for you. I think if we hadn't done this process, you could be here in a year's time or 2 years' time, wondering how these thoughts all link up. And I think something I talk about is I'm trying to help people not go down rabbit holes, which definitely happens, to save time and to save the, expletives and exhaustion about doing this on your own. Those are the 3 things that this tries to avoid. So that time piece is about, the digital presence factor. You talked about LinkedIn. Are you kind of like outsourcing websites and branding, or doing that yourself, or how's your digital presence looking at the moment?
I'm doing it all myself currently because I'm sporadically working as a GP locum, mainly just to put my energy into this for the moment. So at the moment, I'm doing it all myself. It's a steep learning curve, especially the tech side of things, but I'm getting there. The social media, again, as medics, we sometimes find it uncomfortable. I certainly did, but that whole pushing myself out of my comfort zone, I started the Instagram Rebellious Medic in 2021 on that out of program because I knew something was coming when I finished GP training. I didn't know what it was, but I was like, I need to start something. I need to be okay with being vulnerable. I need to be okay with, talking about things that matter to me. And so it was that sort of, it was a test, even though I didn't know what anything was going to look like. And yeah, I took a 1.5-year break from it when, I was struggling through my final year of GP training, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Because now I'm, ready for it again.
Exactly. And the timing's got to be right. Again, that's something I'm seeing is people saying, I can't commit to this now. And that's okay. Life gets in the way. We have other stuff going on. We're juggling busy lives. We're juggling difficult professions. But if there is that thing bubbling away, try and get that commitment to either journaling about it, putting it down. I'm terrible at journaling. My friend Tanya Lynch, who does ease retreats and is a journaling guru, gets very frustrated with my lack of picking up a pen, mainly because I can't write properly. But I just dump everything in notes on my computer, so that if I've got these moments of creativity, they are somewhere for when I'm ready to come back to them. So yeah, timing isn't always there. Doesn't always work in a linear fashion, but you had that presence, you had that idea, you mothballed it or put it to one side, and now you're doing that yourself, because there's obviously lots of different ways. We talk about that in the program. You can do things really simply yourself on something like Squarespace. It's really intuitive. You can spend a fortune on web designers. You can spend a fortune on branding. You can spend a small amount to have somebody to help you do the bits you don't want to do. No one's suggesting you do it all yourself if you absolutely hate it. But for me, it's that recognizing that actually you're probably better off spending money finding your community and a coach than you are on branding a website, certainly in the initial stage. So it's great to see you doing it yourself, and you're doing a really brilliant job. So well done with that. We're going to link all of that up in the end. So we get to the sort of where we want to head to, which is this purposeful life, like living more purposefully. Obviously, you're in the mountains. You wake up every day and look out of the window. I know you've picked up your paintbrushes again, and you write on Substack. And so, do you feel now that you've found this purpose, or have you still got some way to go?
No, I really do. I've got a drive in me that I have not felt for a very, very long time. Probably the first time was, the first day of being a junior doctor, and that drive quickly, sadly gets, extinguished. But I haven't felt this sense of purpose for so long. And I think I was reading the other day that, INFPs tend to get very frustrated if they feel stuck without purpose. And certainly my journey through recently, within the NHS, sadly, I felt really demoralized and stuck because I knew I wanted to do something else. I wanted to do that with my patients, but the system's so rigid at the moment that, you can't really sometimes do what you really want to do. And I think most medics are finding that now, with what's going on. So yeah, moving here and giving myself that time again, whilst locuming on the side to support myself, has been amazing to create that sense of purpose. And it was working with you that made me realize actually the people that I really want to work with are healthcare professionals, because of the journey I've been on, and I have burnt out and I have really struggled, and I did it all by myself and alone because I was too afraid to talk to anyone about it. So I don't want other people to struggle like that. And I think it is really the power. Well, for me, it was hearing other people talk openly to make me realize that I wasn't alone. And it's why I'm okay now with being more honest about what's happened to me, and it's not a failure. So, realizing that I do want to work with other healthcare professionals initially who might be going through what I am or what I did go through, and give them that sort of hope that, you know, there is a way, I think, with rebellious health, hopefully, that we can make the system work for us and not against us. I'm very much at this crossroads, and it's what's really driven the sort of idea around rebellious health is that I'm at this crossroads where I've been grappled with a lot of guilt because I've been thinking if things don't change within the system, you know, I'm out, I think. I've realized that my well-being now is non-negotiable. And sadly, the system is so set up, you know, it does not have our own well-being, you know, it's not a priority at the moment. And unless things change, I can't go on. Like, I can't get a salary job within the NHS right now, because I know what it will do to me. Mm-hmm. But I don't want to leave. Like, I've trained bloody hard to be a doctor. I feel privileged to be a doctor. And I want to stay within the system. And it scares me that there are many, many talented, empathic, caring, compassionate doctors that are in the same position as I am now, or they've already left. You know, we're going through a massive workforce crisis in the NHS right now. We're hemorrhaging doctors, you know, to places like Australia, Canada, and I don't blame them, to be honest, at all. But that scares me for the future of the NHS, because it's us, it's our friends, it's our family that relies on the NHS. So what happens if we all leave, you know? Yeah. And that's what's driven, I think, this new sense of purpose within me. Because I think we can try and change the system to make it work for us. So that, yeah.
Fantastic. I absolutely love that. And it segues beautifully into you telling us a bit about this, because I really, really want people to understand what you're asking people to do. We're always going to ask my guests at the end of it what they can do to help you. But tell us about the new idea and bringing this all together.
Yeah. So the new idea it comes from everything that I've just said right now. It was about thinking, how can I make this work for me going forward, and realizing that many of us might be in that position. So I'm trying to build a community, which essentially has connection at the heart of it, and true well-being. And it's giving doctors a lifeline, you know, if they need it, to have that time, because actually, you know, well-being is a buzzword right now, but what does it really mean? You know, it's not just going to a yoga class if the same situation at work is still the same. And when I looked back, as I said, it was that time that I gave to myself, and I want to normalize that in medicine. I really do. I don't. You know, people sometimes say, oh, it's career suicide if you have a gap on your CV. Actually, I'm like, what's that gap? That's what I want to know. Because I think that is the time where people grow a lot. And, you know, actually, you become better doctors for the time that you give yourself. So rebellious health ultimately is going to be a little bit disruptive, I think, to the way we work. It's going to challenge the way we work. I don't think this will happen from the top down. You know, I don't think it's going to happen from government, and I don't think it's going to happen probably from the, you know, the chief execs and the powers that be. So we've got to change it ourselves. So that's what I'm working towards building, a bit of a disruptive or sort of rebellious platform that challenges that with compassion and well-being and innovation at the heart of it.
Okay, so with that in mind, and I know you don't want to I know it's a work in progress, but we're going to do a question and an ask. So let's go to the ask first. What are you looking for? Who are you looking for? And how do you want people to contact you?
I'm hoping to launch an exciting pilot project or rebellious health program starting in May, June 2024. I'm initially looking for 100 GPs. Possibly you're a GP like me who suffered from burnout, or you are suffering from burnout or compassion fatigue. The moral injury at the moment is quite bad in the NHS. perhaps you're a healthcare professional who started to question how we do things, possibly in the medical system. I think we're all feeling that, it's great for some stuff if you break your leg and, you want to be going to a hospital. But for the majority of what we see in general practice in particular, I think we do feel a little bit, the something is not quite right with how we're doing things with the sort of the biomedical model. Perhaps you're using unhealthy coping mechanisms because you're just surviving, which is what I did for a very long time. Or you're a GP who is also maybe a bit innovative, a bit rebellious, wants to challenge things. So I'm looking for GPs like that who are willing to give my pilot project a go, for me to be able to talk about this idea in a lot more detail.
Yeah. So partners and locums and salaried, it doesn't matter what.
Yeah. I mean, ideally, I want to get a good spread. I'd love to have GP partners who are currently working, because partners are really important to this idea as a whole. They have the power to kind of innovate and say yes to new ideas. They also might be struggling right now with a very heavy workload. Yeah. And then also I'd love some salaried doctors who, again, maybe really, really looking for that break, that lifeline that I needed. Yeah. And I'm looking for GP locums. So locuming at the moment is quite hard in the UK, just for a whole host of reasons. So if you're locuming and you want to hear about this idea, I'd love to hear from you, but also locums who are doing things a little bit differently. So locums who have side hustles, locums who are doing, other creative businesses on the side. I'd love to hear from you too. I think that spread would be an amazing group of people to bring together for the first project.
Right. And I think what you're looking for is what you're looking to do is combine this improving our own well-being and looking after ourselves with this concept of changing things up to kind of improve the workforce and to facilitate a different way of working. And without being too ambiguous, I think we're looking for, potentially supporting people having these gaps in their working life so that they can have this time. So I think, as this project develops, there's going to be more and more information giving out there. But for now, if you are, a GP partner burning out or wanting to have some time out or not knowing how to take that time out, this is an opportunity to jump into, because I think this is the beginning of something really, really exciting. And it's amazing to see it come to life. So a little bit, it's all still ambiguous, but it's very, very exciting to think about what that's going to do for people. How do people best contact you, providing you haven't got anything more to share over the next couple of months? Say, how do people contact you at the moment? Email or website?
Yes, so you can either email me directly. That's just rebelliousmedic@gmail.com at the moment. Yeah. I've got a landing page website because I'm still currently building the website, but www.rebelliousmedic.com. Yeah. You can sign up to my newsletter through that link. And that will also give you the link to sign up to the RE project, which is the pilot project that's launching in May, June. And I'm also on Instagram as well at Rebellious Medic. So I'm very happy for you to find me there, or LinkedIn, Dr. Emma Presern.
Dr. Emma Presern. I'll link all of that in the show notes as well. Right, so we are drawing to a close. I'm going to do, so when we had our membership for girls in the How People, which during COVID was a lifeline for us and for many, many teenage girls, every guest we had on, we asked them what their advice would be to their teenage self. And we had some incredible feedback about that. And this is about medics. This is about this journey. This is about finding your purpose. And what I would like to do is ask a similar question, but actually what I want you to do is think about what advice you would give your newly qualified self. You talked about that buzz of becoming a junior doctor. We all remember those house jobs with a degree of fondness and rose-tinted spectacles. But, now as somebody further down the line in your career, what advice would you give your newly qualified doctor self?
I think probably the biggest bit of advice I would give myself as a newly qualified doctor is to never just try to fit in and suppress who you really are. I did that for so many years of my life, from teenage years to probably late 20s, early 30s. I just tried to fit in. I suppressed what was going on, and I didn't talk to people. So I think, don't do that. Don't wear a mask. Just be who you are. Be authentic. Be vulnerable. Reach out to people. Talk to people. There are so many people. Once you start being vulnerable, you realize how much connection comes from that. So that's one of the things that I would advise. And the other thing that I have only recently discovered now, and I would advise myself, is do not block your creative do not block your creative drive and your creative spark. Every one of us is creative. We are. That's what makes us unique as humans. And I spent my entire, again, from university onwards, suppressing my creative side because I was in the science, medical, university exams. So I didn't write, I didn't paint, and that has been one of the best things that's come out of me giving myself time, has been rediscovering that creative side. So that's the other bit of advice I would give. Is
brilliant. And again, that's a repeat. We hear that again and again in the community, don't we? And I think I see it now in my teenagers. They make those decisions so early. And, if you're going to do science A levels, you ditch all your arts, your languages, your potentially your music, and that's it. And it is just the best advice for us to keep. And also that keeping that creativity bubbling alongside your medical career may also prevent some of this potential burnout and the difficulties that people are coming across. So that's great advice. Thank you so much for that. And thank you for joining me, and thank you for sharing. Super excited to see what happens next. I will share everything in the show notes, as I've said. Please get in touch with Emma directly if you want to talk to her. But I think from me and Emma, this is about keep questioning, keep growing, keep learning, and keep taking one step at a time towards whatever a purposeful life looks like for you. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Jo.
I hope this episode has sparked some new ideas or challenged your thinking. Transitioning from medicine to business is not easy. It's about adapting our skills while embracing the unknowns of entrepreneurship. It can be nerve-wracking, but remember, you are not alone on this journey. Please feel free to reach out to me via direct message on LinkedIn or Instagram, or just shoot me an email at jo@bendylegs.com for support. And don't forget to grab the free PDF from the show notes, From Stethoscope to Startup, which is your go-to guide and resource for diving into entrepreneurship. Many thanks for tuning in. I will see you next time. Thanks for spending your precious time with me.
This has been a Monkey Pants Productions podcast.